Hi, book club members. I'm Jen.
And I'm Carrie.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a Krieg. This is episode number 132, and our book is Dead Men Walking by Steve Lyons, which tells the tale of a Necron invasion. I almost said Tyranid because I'm thinking of Space Marine 2. A Necron invasion, and, how the Krieg, in a very human and personalized way, deal with it. We posted several questions on our website, WH40kbookclub.com, and we encourage participation in our conversations by YouTube, our site, or encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning. If you haven't yet read this book, definitely check it out before listening to this episode, as we'll be talking about the book from start to finish in great detail. With that, let's dive in. Carrie, as always, did you like the book?
Until the end, yes. That's the only reason why my Goodreads review is 4 stars instead of 5.
Oh, we're going to talk so much about the end. We're going to talk so much about the end in this book because I have a theory that this might be the most 40k of Warhammer 40k books. But
I agree with you 100%, but dang it, I needed something happy and I was not getting it.
If anybody has social media and you're familiar with the sad beige lady with, this is Werner Herzog's newest line of children's clothing. This is Werner Herzog presents Warhammer 40k. The crushing ennui of existence and the futility of man in the 40k universe. I absolutely loved this book for a variety of reasons, but yes, that ending crushed me.
For those of you who can't see me, I'm crossing my arms and pouting like a child.
What part stood out to you, Carrie?
Man, look, what didn't? I mean...
Well, my goodness, woman. No, I feel that. There was... And God, Steve Lyons, he was on display. There were so many like little quips and phrases and just things that he handled that I loved. In fact, I had to go back this morning and re-listen to I listened to the audiobook. I think it was chapter 23, 6, one of the two. But it's when they are escorting Eric's is getting off the planet and they switch back over to Gunther's point of view. And he talks about the latest quota of the privileged. That phrasing, because, oh man, again, it's very 40k, but just getting all of the privileged important people off of the planet. Everyone else is going to die a horrible death, but we're getting the important people off. And I juxtapose that with Colonel 186 saying, if it were up to me, I would have loaded it up with useful things.
Right.
Which,
well, I mean, he had a way with words, didn't he?
Oh, we're gonna talk a lot about him.
Just like that, or when, Henrik came to him, is like, you put my men up for slaughter. And he was just like, but they're not as good as my men. So therefore, they're less useful.
I actually liked when Henrik was like, how dare you? And all of a sudden Colonel 186 is like,
so you're saying we should have died?
You would have preferred if I had sent my men to the slaughter? And Henrik is like, oh.
Well, would you put it that way? No.
But remember, he immediately is like, but you are better trained than my men. And that's when Colonel 186 is like, yeah, so we need to save our guys for different missions. Like, but I loved the way, man, he did cut through to the bone. Absolutely cut through. I did like that also with him and Henrik again. Basically, you get to see so much personality from 186 because of Henrik. And Henrik. And there was that scene where where he's talking about calling up the survivors, right? Calling them up to be soldiers. And, oh, no, we can't send these people. Are they not loyal to the Imperium?
Right.
No, they are. Well, then they'll be glad to give their lives for the Imperium. Bro, all I could think of was a teenage Negasonic warhead. You got me in a box.
Right.
That's all I could think of with all of that. Like, I mean, bro has a point.
Yeah, he does have a point. I think one other thing I really liked about just dealing with them was, the commissars, when Mannheim was talking to him, he's like, why do they even need commissars? Like, well, sometimes people need like a person to talk to.
I loved that. I thought that was excellent when he's just like, yeah, sometimes we have to interface with the population. And you get to immediately see that, right? Steve Lyons did a really good job of like saying that. And then like 2 chapters later, demonstrating it, right? I liked that. And also, sometimes we have to prevent them from being a little too zealous.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk more about the commissars because I really loved them in general. But I loved that entire section where you should probably go down and get something to eat on shore leave. No, I'm gonna socialize with the men. Yeah, you should go down to the planet. It's not gonna be a lot of socialization up here. He did a really good job, I thought, all throughout, of both showing the Krieg as like the stereotypical, the Krieg, right? Like the memes of the Krieg, while also showing the kind of human side of them. So like when Costellan is in the city with that young trooper, which of course he's like one of their more experienced grenadiers, and he pulls his mask off and he's like
19.
Like, you child. But they kill that one guy who's like talking about the Iron Gods, and he talks about the Krieger having like a sneer of disgust on his face, and he's like, that was the most human emotion he's had.
Well, that he's been able to see, right?
So yes, fair enough. Yeah, just absolutely all of these nice little nuanced touches that I thought he did really well.
Giggle also when he took off his mask and he talked about the lines of acne, from the mask. Because all I could think of is my eldest kid. I can tell when he does not wash his face after playing VR, because he literally has pimples down here, across his the bridge of his nose and up on his forehead. And it's like, playing a little too much VR,
huh? My daughter is a hockey goalie. So here and here, that mask is not. It does you no favors. That sweatband is disgusting. It is something from Nurgle. But yes, I had the same thought where I was just like, oof, Krieg lifestyle is not good for skincare. Those just have to like gas masks is freaking out, you guys.
I guess what the real thing is, though, that said something to me about Steve Lyons as a writer, right? That he thought of adding something. So what seems like so. What is that? What does that detail matter? It matters a lot, because that just a little bit of realism in there.
It's realism, but it also reminds you this is a child.
Right.
This is a youth, I should say, because he's an adult. He's 19ish, right? But like, this is a youth.
Young adult.
His acne on his face. Like it adds he is supposed to be this super experienced soldier and a grenadier, right? But it adds this like, it's a touch of realism, but it's also a touch of humanity. Like, oh, he's got like acne on his face, and yeah, there's a youthful humanity to it.
And even at 19, he's still super cold.
Very cold. Very cold, very programmed, which
pragmatic.
Let's talk a little bit about the Krieg programming. Of our 2 young lovers, let us start with Gunther. Were you emotionally invested in Gunther's journey throughout the book?
Yes.
Oh my God. It was fascinating to me, though, how quickly he goes from being this very soft character, and I mean that like in he's soft of tone, he doesn't really have much of a backbone, right? He's lived a pampered life. He's been somewhat privileged on a hive world that has never had any problems, to by the end there being like, ugh, I'm so disgusted at all these soft people.
Right.
Apparently you don't have to be born on Krieg to fall into Krieg line.
No, I think it's part of that, if that's just, because he goes through, I loved how they explained those 3 weeks, right? He remembered this, goes into this deep paragraph. He remembered the smell of this. So that was amazing writing. But that 3 weeks, and it kind of reminded me actually of the first Halo novel. God, I forgot who wrote it. Jesus. But anyway, because that gets into when they kidnap all those kids for the Spartan 2 training and what they do. And they talk about how basically they run them and they work them until they can barely, after a week, like John 1:17, he's like, he could barely remember what his parents looked like because of the training regimen that they had them in. And so it kind of reminded me of that. And even he was just like, try to remember what Eric's looked like. Love of his life. Can you remember what she looks like? Because it's just the regimen. And when you have things that are that structured and you know what you're doing every minute, every day, and you can't think of other things, that 100% happens.
He was a roller coaster, because you start in the beginning and you have this just kind of indecisive, I don't even qualify for the PDF because I'm kind of cowardly, to, this is hard.
He runs away from the mutants.
Right, exactly. And then throughout training, he's like, I don't know about this. This is really hard, but I guess I'm just going to have to barrel through with this, to becoming, yep, this is what we do. I am a soldier. I am super hard. I can't even believe that I would have run from one of these mutants before.
Yes, I loved that parallel. In the beginning, he ran away in terror, and then he's just like, after the Necrons, this was like no big deal. Why was he so afraid of them in the first place? Perspective, right?
Perspective, exactly that. I really liked that, to then, yep, I will volunteer for a suicide mission, volunteer. And then at the end, it made me so sad when after he climbs out of all this rubble, right, and he finds the statue of Eric's father. And he has this moment where he completely breaks down and is like, oh my God, I've lost everything. I am a completely different person, right? And then pretty much immediately after having his little meltdown is like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go be a hero. Like, I'm going to do what has to be done. It is an incredible roller coaster with him, which seems very human.
Yes. Does, even when they were basically telling him to go on this suicide mission, they're trying to get him to volunteer for a suicide mission. And he was just like, oh my God, seriously. So then he volunteers. And when they're talking about, well, I bet we could even get you the Iron Aquila posthumously. It's just like, I don't even care. Like, that's exactly how a Krieg would have responded. I don't even care.
Right. Just like, oh, okay. Sure. Like, why not?
He starts referring to himself as his numbers.
It takes him a second to remember Gunther Sorensen as him.
Yep.
Yeah. It not to go full MK Ultra, but that conditioning, it's a hell of a drug. And it is effective. Especially the way that the Krieg do it, where we brook no arguments. Let's juxtapose him with Eric, shall we? How does her journey compare? Was it as compelling? Did you like her? Did you like it?
I did like her.
We're both agreed that Tyler didn't deserve her, right?
Yeah. Like, no. So when she's down there in the pyramid and he's going down there, I was like, oh, this is when they're going to like run into each other. It's going to be so amazing. That's not what happened. And he sees her, she's getting on the ramp, but she doesn't hear him with all the commotion. And he's like, oh, but she's found somebody else. Well, that's fine, because I couldn't be with her anyway. I'm just like, oh my God, no, this is not cool, man. Not cool.
Okay, hear me out for a second, guys. I'm going to sound like a real dick here. So she's very privileged, right? She is essentially, I know she's the governor's niece, that in terms of like royalty, right? It almost makes her like a princess. Like she is a member of the royal family, right? And so she's slumming it in the beginning.
That's exactly what I thought. I was just like, oh, this is fun, just kind of slumming it a little bit.
Right. Like she's seeing how the other half lives. Because whether she knows it or not, people know who she is, right? So like if she were to ever actually get into trouble, all she would have to do is be like, do you know who I am?
Right.
And she would probably get out of that trouble pretty quickly. She's cosplaying as a revolutionary, essentially,
And she's like,
in the beginning.
she talks him into going to lower levels, and he's like, I don't feel safe down here. Like, this is, I never even go down this level. She's just like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Like, we need to see what's actually going on. Do you, though? Because again,
again, you're
like,
cosplaying as a revolutionary.
yeah, right.
Here.
Yeah. You're trying to be cool in a way.
Mm-hmm. You're trying to be cool. You're trying to be, I don't know. You're trying to look like, I know what's really
She's trying
going
to do
on.
like a Prince and the Pauper thing, right?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. And in the beginning, I felt really bad because I'm like, oh man, like here you have this upper crust woman dragging a middle crust man down into the lower crust. And he is close enough to it that he's like, no, we want no part of this. She has no idea.
Right.
She's thinking that they are, I did not like that. So the fact that then in the end of the book, this girl gets to get off the planet. Oh,
Right.
ooh, it really chapped me. I was really upset because I'm like, oh, you spend the beginning of the book, which I guess is probably, God damn it, it is probably her, like the appropriate journey for her now that I'm saying it aloud.
It is, but it doesn't mean I had to like it.
But she has like almost the opposite journey of Gunther, where she's like in the beginning, she's just like, look how rugged I am and look how I understand what life is really like. And then in the end, she's like, I'm the governor's niece. I'm the governor's niece. Oh, we'll get you off on a ship. Oh, thank God. Like when she even asked the colonel, like, oh, that's so kind. Or says to the colonel, it's so kind of you to take us. Yeah, if it were up to me, I would actually put vehicles there instead. Like, lady. This is literally politics in play. She doesn't argue. She doesn't say. And even then when she's leaving and that guy like throws the food can at her, which really, when she turns around and she's like, let me explain. God, you went through all of that and you still are out of touch. You're still out of touch. And Tyler doesn't deserve you. And you didn't deserve Gunter.
I mean, I was coming around on her when her uncle's like, I'm going to send you away. And she's like, oh my God, I got to go tell Gunther I love him. I'm like, okay, so she's not just slumming it for fun. She actually really does love this guy. Okay. And then I was sad that they did star-crossed, but I'm still not exactly sure how she ended up in the slavery thing. That was just kind of weird. She's just like, I just figured I should do this to live.
Well,
okay.
That whole thing, I will actually, let's real talk. Hers are the weakest sections of the book.
Fair.
When they really go into like, the high priest, Amarath.
Yeah, Amarith. But
Amarith, when they go into his story, like I understand it, right? Like as soon as the Necron says, I'll let everybody go if you just leave, right? Fool on you for, actually, maybe that's true. Maybe that's even true.
Maybe they would have. We don't know.
Maybe they would have. We don't know. But the fact that you have this section of people who are like, ooh, I for one worship or welcome our new robot overlords. Literally what the book was, wasn't it? Anyways, The Simpsons just predicted everything. That, right? Like I understood it, but like I got it. I wasn't super invested in it. I felt like those were like the chapters where I was like, oh, God. And Eric's, hers did not have the poignancy that Gunther's did.
Well, hers had nothing wrong with this. I think it's fine that she was kind of the damsel in distress. Mm-hmm. I really do, because I am kind of sick of women characters that are good at everything they do, because it's like there's no struggle.
Well, and also it wouldn't have made sense. So unlike Gunther, who she thinks she's like this super, I know what's going on, and look at me taking action and taking agency for my actions here, and we're going to go down, and oh my God, it's a mutant. She doesn't get the training. So if all of a sudden down in the pyramid, she was just like, actually, I think I can figure out how to kill these Necrons, I would have been like, no, pump the brakes.
Well, yes.
When did that knowledge come to you?
Yes, but that's my point, that they didn't make her a Mary Sue, where she's like, I'm good at everything I do, because I'm a strong female character. But
I
I
can
thought,
girl boss out of this.
right, actually, and I thought because she stayed weak in a way, but didn't give up, said that to me says you're still a strong female character.
Well, I would actually argue that that's probably her strength, is that even in the face of Necrons and this is bad and this is terrible and you can't do anything, what are you going to do? Go arm wrestle them? Um, Even then, she doesn't give up. And she doesn't give up on Gunther
No.
either. Like, she is convinced she's going to, and that was the only redeeming thing to me about her, is the whole time she's like, oh man, Gunther, like, I wonder where he is. I got to get back to him. I did like that she doesn't give up, but yeah, I would have been grossly disappointed if she would have like picked up a gun and been like, and now I'm going to kill a whole bunch of Necrons and look at me girl bossing my way out of this with knowledge and experience that I have not learned or haven't been shown people that I know. And
See, even Gunther, with all of his training, he still messed up, still made
Oh, yeah.
mistakes, fell,
Yeah.
missed. Like, I loved how he talked about how he was so bad shooting, he missed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Krieg's just like, will you stop wasting ammunition? Such a Krieg thing to say. But
Such a great thing to say.
yeah. So, I mean, so you're right. Like, I was invested in her story, but that was just because I was like, is she going to get back with Gunther? Is she going to find him? Like, honestly, even if one of them was dying and they got to see each other again, I would have been okay with it. But then just to be like, but the fact that he sees her and she never sees him just killed me.
If they would have just gone like the atonement route, they never see each other again, I would have been like, oh, thus is life, c'est la vie.
Right.
But no, he gets to see her. And I do like that at that point, she doesn't even ask like about him or anything, right? I was a little disappointed in her for that, but I did, again, it was that sort of,
I think,
well, I've got to get off the planet because I am an important person.
yeah,
I need to
but
get
I
off.
think also she was thinking when she got there and she sees all the survivors, she'd been like, well, if he's alive, he would be here. And she never saw him. She had no idea that he would have been, kind of conscripted into the PDF like everybody else was.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Let me ask this about the Krieg. So we talked about this a little bit with Castellan.
Very sad when he died, but anyway.
I was devastated when he died because I absolutely loved his character.
Yes, me too.
Oh my God, I loved everything about him.
I love the fact that he said that he wished he could be as amazing of a hero as Caiaphas Cain. I was like, all right, there, you're my favorite guy ever.
Best character ever. Because of the nature of the Krieg, does it allow, so in granted, same author, I understand that, but we saw this in Siege of Vraaks too, where does the nature of the Krieg allow their commissars to be more human? Like, they don't have to just be like, look, I kill the people who desert. It's obviously Caiaphas Cain is a little bit different, right? Because Caiaphas Cain is Caiaphas Cain. But like we for this podcast have even read books where the commissar is just, they have to be this very cold and unflinching person because their job is to make sure that people don't run, right? Their job is to hunt out traitors in terms of like
heretics,
deserters, stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. Does the Krieg allow their commissars? Because like Castellan was so human and so concerned about his men and so concerned about everything that represented the Krieg. Like the fact that he's like, I got to get out of here. I have got to get away from the Krieg because this is destroying me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Does it allow for that? Does that make that interesting? Do you like that?
So what I really think what it is that the fact that the Krieg are so, I loved how he put it, that they're not inhuman, they're dehumanized. I loved that phrasing.
Yes.
But I think because they are so dehumanized, therefore the commissars have to be more humanized than normal. So it's a requirement. So I think a cold commissar wouldn't work well. Like they might, like as in like they might get along with the Krieg just fine because I don't have anybody to shoot, but that doesn't fall in line with the other duties that the commissar would have to perform as being with the Krieg, as what Castellan had pointed out to Mannheim.
Right.
So I think that versus if you're with regiments like Valhallan 597th, for example, very human soldiers, so you might have to be a little colder You might have to be more dehumanized to keep them in line. So I think it's just a matter of like what the regiment actually, calls for. Like the Talarn, right? What do they need? A little more zealous commissar, because they need someone as zealous as they are. Otherwise, they're not going to respect them.
Right. I think you're right. I think also it would be a difficult character for us to like. If you had a cold commissar when Colonel 186 is like, yeah, we're just going to go sacrifice like 1,000 guys for this. If you had a commissar who was like, sounds good, love it, let's do it. Like, who didn't be like, ooh, I don't know, is that really the best use of these people? Like, let's take a step back. Let's take a step back. Let's acknowledge.
Because the commissar would have been the one to kill Henrik instead of Colonel. And I don't think that would have worked very well at all if the commissar did it. I think it was so much more fitting for the Krieg to do it.
I absolutely agree with that. And I think it's given Steve Lyons a very interesting, because you do need to have that character who is not of the Krieg, right?
Yeah.
To really appreciate the Krieg. And so you have this commissar who is deeply, deeply familiar with the Krieg. He's been with them for a long time, right? He understands the way that they operate, but he also understands that it's a little atypical. And I really liked the idea that he's like, yeah, I got to get away from these guys, because even he started recognizing himself starting to think like the Krieg.
Right, which is what he was talking to Mannheim about. He's like, when we start thinking of people in numbers. And of course, Mannheim is like young enough, and the commissar, he's like, well, if you think any other way, if you're going against him, that's heresy, right? It's like, okay, it's time. It's time to go. It's time to go anywhere else.
Anywhere else, literally anywhere else.
The Catachan jungle fighters, that's fine too.
I really enjoyed the section where he was in the city with that young Krieg guy, because again, you get to see the difference. Like, I love how many times he had to like hold the Krieg guy back and be like, no, not right now. Right. And then when he finally allows him to kill that one guy, the fact that he's like, okay, but keep it quiet. Right. Like, that whole section, it's wonderful, because you get to see, again, he knows the Krieg, he understands the Krieg, but he's a little shocked, right? Here's this super experienced guy. He's 19.
At the same time, for someone who knows the Krieg, and he still went in to go talk to the people.
Yeah. Okay, his death really wrecked me.
It did, 'cause I was like, okay, I know you guys are cold, but seriously? You just killed the commissar who has like a fragment of Yurton's skull with him, and you're just like, well, the end justifies the means. Had to kill the guy, so just because it goes through you is no big deal. Okay.
It was like such a great character. And this is again, which goes to my final question that we'll talk a lot about to ruminate on if this is the most 40K of 40K books. Such a great character. We have spent 3/4 of this book getting to know him. And does he go out saving orphans from a burning building? Does he go out crippling the enemy, one of their critical command posts? No. He goes out in an arguably ignoble, mundane way. Now, granted, he put himself in that position, which was very much within his character. Just let me go talk to them. Let me go talk to them. Very much within his character. I think if he would have been like, all right, I'm going to go out there as a decoy. You go ahead and shoot me to get this guy, right? Then I would have been like, no. That betrays your entirety of your character. I hate how fitting his death was, I guess is what I'm saying. He deserved better.
He did deserve better. He deserved that kind of retirement.
He did. But as soon as he was like, I'm going to transfer, I was like, oh, why don't you just pull out a picture of your wife and kids? You're going to die. And we all know it.
Well, when he did though, right? When he was emptying his like Foot Locker, like the family photos, I was like, oh, well, it's like I'm watching Downton Abbey again and I'm going to go for a drive.
oh my God.
Anyone
oh
who's
my
seen
God.
Downton Abbey knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I didn't survive that long, that show.
You got to that episode at least, because that's what killed it for you. I know that because it's when
They do that more than that?
they did it. They only did it that one time.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying that there were like multiple
Oh God,
instances of
no!
that.
But it's like I just had a baby. I'm happy. I'm going to go for a drive for no reason. Nothing bad will ever happen to me now.
Or not. Yes, that's right. Anyways, yes. As soon as he said that he was going to retire, I was like, oh my God, this guy's not getting out of this book alive. And then when he pulled out, when he was going through his footlocker, I was like, yep, he's dead. He's dead. But I thought he was going to go out like in some badass way. Maybe in a badass way that would show how human he was.
No, instead he just gets kind of discarded. And the Krieg's like, well, I'll just take that chainsword and your gun and this skull fragment, and we really can't take you with us, so peace.
But that was also very much within the Krieg,
Yes,
right?
it was just so cold. So
it
cold.
made me think of Siege of Vraaks, where we had that commissar who's talking with that colonel, and he's like, yeah, I just kind of feel like I'm getting old, and maybe I'm a little too old for this. And then all of a sudden, he's on that suicide mission, and it clicks with him. He's like, oh my God, that colonel thought he was doing me a favor. Like this was his gift to me.
Right.
It's very much within their idiom. I think had they come down and been like, we're really sorry, but we will honor you. Again, it would not have been true to their characters.
Right.
But I would have liked it a lot better. I would not have. Colonel 186 is not the first commander we have seen for the Krieg. Did you like him? Was he good?
I mean, he was Krieg. He was the Kriegiest Krieg there has ever Krieged.
Oh my God, he Krieged hard.
Yes, he did.
I actually did love him though, because you're right. Some of the best turns of phrase in this book come from him.
Mm-hmm.
And that one in particular with Henrik, when he's just like, you would have preferred that I send my men to die? Like, dude, there's something, their lack of humanity makes them just really observant.
Yes.
Because he heard what Henrik was saying without saying it.
Yes. And I just love, he's just like, well, they're good if they believe they're loyal to the emperor, then they're cool with dying for him. That's what we're all supposed to do, right?
Very
sure.
I mean,
I know that's what we say in
kind of.
church, but put a gun to our heads, do we really mean it?
I think that was kind of funny because that was definitely where the rubber hits the road.
What's really funny is that I could see a space marine having the exact same reaction. It's being like, well, you're here to die for the emperor today.
Right, exactly.
Especially a Black Templar. Not an Ultramarine. Ultramarine would have been a little more understanding, but a Black Templar would have been like, dude, get a gun. You're with us. It's
pretty much.
It's crusading time.
It's crusading time. Yes, very much so. I think you're absolutely right there. But yeah, I think that was what was somewhat interesting is that these people all probably thought they were very pious citizens of the emperor. They were loyal. Of course they were loyal. Don't be absurd.
But they were soft. I love that. He's just like, you people are soft. And Henrik's just like clutching his pearls like, I'd never.
How dare you? We are a mining world, sir. Yeah, and it is. It was very much this interesting. You put all of this lip service to worshiping the emperor, and yes, we sacrifice ourselves to the emperor, and we give everything for the emperor. But now you get to see what that really means.
And we're not sure we want that because maybe the Iron Gods would be cooler about it.
It was hard because through him you could kind of understand again, like we get presented with these people who are like trying to worship the Iron Gods, and on one hand you're like, ew, you idiots, these people don't care, like they don't care about
especially
you,
with the flares in the beginning.
Ugh. I was okay. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little bit worried when the Flayers showed up. I was like, "Oh God, please don't let this be a Flayers story."
No, they were just the first wave.
They were just the first wave. Yeah, they sent out the ones they were like, send the defective ones out, um, and they did. Um, but you can see why. And again, I know that we see this a lot in 40k books, where it's like trading one unforgiving god for another, right? Like, at least the Necrons would be honest that they don't care about you. Um, I did like you see it though through Colonel 186's actions of like, nope, this is what it really means.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it really means to be a citizen of the Imperium. And I think because of the way that the Krieg are, it's just very nicely presented. I don't know really how else to articulate that.
I'm not sure I would either, but I'm also like on a lack of sleep, so I'm not the things aren't firing as they should be anyway. But yeah, the Krieg, the crazy thing is, it's just, I was just thinking of examples of maybe other factions that would show what it truly means to live in the name of the Emperor. And I was thinking of the Inquisitors of the Ordo Hereticus. I'm like, at least the Krieg are nicer than those guys.
Or the sisters. The sisters would not be chill about that either.
No, they wouldn't.
Oh, no, the sisters would have zero chill about that. So in some ways, it actually, now that you say that, I guess it doesn't make the Krieg that unique. They're very matter of fact about it. At least it wasn't the fire and brimstone. Well, looks like we're setting all of these people on fire then,
right.
because they're all heretics.
It's pragmatic and cold. Like the Order Hereticus is not pragmatic or cold. They're zealous. No. The Battle Sisters, it depends like which Battle Sister. I think some would definitely be like, okay, we can talk about this, and others would be like, no, we gotta burn it all.
I'm surrounded by heretics.
They would have called Exterminatus in the beginning.
That's right. Just been like, although, like, everybody's still dying. It's just a matter of when.
That's when they called the retreat. It was like, but I can still do this. Like, oh no, we've lost. It's over. We're leaving now. Wait.
I did like how pragmatic they were about that. Like, no, we're just leaving.
Well, why are you leaving? We can't win this war. It's time to call him an Exterminatus. But there's 9 billion people. Yeah, sorry.
Sucks. We tried though. We gave it the college try. We tried for the Emperor.
We did give it the college try.
They did. They really did. So okay, Steve Lyons. This is we read these totally out of order.
Hey, not our fault. Not our fault.
Not our fault. Not our fault. It's actually kind of fun. Years and years ago, when I was probably too young, I read the Flowers in the Attic trilogy, and I read them completely out of order too. And it does, it's kind of fun when you go back in time, but that was actually those were direct series. Look it up, kids. This is the first of the books. If you look at the series as like a triptych, because they're not actually like
it's not a trilogy.
It's not a trilogy. It's more like a triptych. It's like 3 stories that go together spiritually about this. I actually love it, by the way. Can I ask you, like, do you like that as like an idea for a series that they're not necessarily related? It's fun. It's super fun.
Totally agree. Well, I mean, considering like, so the book just called Krieg, it was half, telling Yurton what happened in the past, and then half with the current commander and an Inquisitor. It wouldn't make sense to continue that commander's story. And the same thing with Siege of Vraaks. Wouldn't make sense to continue that guy's story. It's just, these are almost like, a day in the life of, of not Solzhenitsyn, that was the name, that was the author, but Denisovich, Ivan Denisovich. It's just telling a story about this particular faction, this particular day. No reason to go into it because you know what? Like the end of Full Metal Jacket is very haunting. Everything is burning and the Marines are marching out singing the Mickey Mouse Club theme song to march to because it's just another day in Vietnam, right? That's how these are. So they left this one. Just going to go to the next one and do it again.
Very much so with the Krieg. There's a lot there. Yes, I want a sequel to Siege of Vraaks just for that one character. I just want to know what happens with him and this Inquisitor going off to experience the world. Um, but yes, it is very much for the Krieg, rinse and repeat. Well, actually, really for all the Imperial Guard units, right? They touch on this a lot in the Gaunt's Ghost series too. Is that you
Maybe,
dust off
except
and you
that
go to another place.
we could easily have a sequel to the Steel Tread. We could easily have a sequel to the Volpone Glory. I wouldn't
Oh,
mind.
it's for sure Volpone Glory.
I wouldn't
Yes.
mind learning more about, seeing the next adventures those guys go on. Because, and that's just because they have the personality versus, these guys, no. Except for, you're right,
That's fair.
in Siege of Vrax, because was a little different. But
Although you're not wrong, like the idea that because I was thinking about this today about like how these books really work, right? And I feel like this book was an example of how the outside world sees the Krieg, right? And how they affect the world that they're on, right? So we get to see them indoctrinating people into their way of training. The second book was, hey, this is why they're the way they are. And this is kind of what happened. This is what happened to the Krieg to get them to this point. And then the third book was, this is how vehemently they guard their way of life, but they are capable of more. Some of them are capable of greatness, and you can break out of that conditioning and that dehumanization, right? Which I loved. I think that is such a neat way to look at the Krieg, because the Krieg, and we've made this joke a lot, right? And I think the Krieg aren't alone in this. You also have this with the Catachan. The Catachan are the first ones that come to mind. They're kind of a meme,
right.
right? Like they're kind of a meme. They, oh yeah, those are the guys that they kill themselves for the Emperor because they're super zealous and they dig trenches. I like that he's like, well, this is kind of here's how you can look at all of these guys and here's how they operate. And I really do like that. And I think you're right. The more that I'm thinking through this, I think you're right. I don't know that I would love to have a sequel. I think the idea of, well, this is what one Krieg regiment is doing. This is how they got here. This is what another Krieg regiment is doing. This
Well,
is how they get deployed.
it's like another way to look at it. It's like, so, this first book, Dead Men Walking, is again was outside observers of the Krieg. And then this, like you said, the second book is more of like a history lesson. How did Jurchen get them here? And then the third book was the first time we actually get anything from a Krieg's perspective, and we get it from quite a few of them. So it's like how everybody sees them, what makes them tick. Now you see them tick.
Yes. How do others see them? How did we get here? How do they see themselves? Mm-hmm. And it was that Siege of Vrax. I think
whether he meant to do that or not, it's genius either way. So
yes, it is absolutely brilliant. I really do love it. And look, I love the Catachan books. I think the Catachan are really fun. And I don't think, because the Catachan are kind of fun, I don't think they necessarily need this type of, well, actually, let's talk about how the Catachan got to be the way that they are. I think the Krieg needed that deep dive. They needed okay, let's look beyond the memes for a hot second here, okay? And because they are a fascinating faction.
But the difference between them and the Catachan are literally on a death world, right? So they're having to learn how to live like a savage life to survive on a death world. The Krieg's death world is a world of their own making.
Man-made death world.
Yes.
She said when you started going down that phrase and you're like, well, the Catachan are on a death world. I was like, well, the Krieg aren't exactly in Hawaii. But
no.
You're absolutely right. They made their death world. They had a lovely planet, and then it had a problem. They broke it violently. I do think,
and they feel like they have to atone for the rest of their existence. Whereas the Catachan are like, we're just survivors, man, and we're really good at it.
We're survivors, yeah. I think also, you and I have talked about this a little bit with the Cadians. God, we have seen so much of the Cadians that I'm kind of tired of the Cadians. But I think like the Catachan don't need this type of deep dive. I love that this is a 3-part series, but I feel like I would love to see another book from him, because I feel as though I really liked this book. I thought this book was well written, but much like I often say with like Abnett, you can see his very rough beginnings and then you can see him evolve into this fantastic author, right? Chris Raitt, you can see him evolving. ADB, you can see them
I
evolving.
have to say, I would love if this was my rough beginning in writing a book. I will take that any day of the week. Like same
His
thing.
is not rough. His is not rough. I should say that. His is not a rough beginning.
But it's like, well,
but you do see it just like, you just see him getting stronger and stronger.
It was like when I found out that the first Nightbringer, First Year Old Adventures book, was literally Graham McNeil's first book he ever wrote. I'm like, son of a bitch. Like,
right. Or like, I think Katie and Blood was like ADB's
first
You're
book.
like, that was your first book?
And like, it's one thing for it to be your first book in Warhammer 40k, but I'm talking about this was Graham McNeil's first book ever. Like,
right. No. And sorry, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying this is a rough beginning, but you do see him just honing and getting better and better as the series goes, which I love. And that is so much fun. And I'm a big fan, and I love this series. And by the way, the special edition, having all three of them, do I feel a little silly that I now own all three books, I think, in special, 2 copies of them now, because I have them in the regular and special editions? Yes,
I only have that with Krieg, but
I like them, and I don't regret anything. It's just, they're fun.
I was totally not going to get the Krieg limited edition, and then I think you kind of talked me into it, and then when I got it, and then when this one arrived and put them all on the shelf, it's like, oh, God damn it. They do look good together.
They look so nice. God, they look so nice. Absolutely love them. And I love how good, like, it just looks so good. So this might become one of my new favorite series within the 40K universe. And I'm really glad we went back and read this one. But let us... Is this the most 40K of Warhammer 40K books? Like, if you were to say, like, let me ask you this.
Yes.
If somebody, yeah, right. Like, after playing Space Marine 2, because I've talked with people, like people I work with, my friends, my daughter's friends, and my friends' kids who are kind of adults or like in their early 20s. They are now all like, I love this universe. I'm like, cool. I almost feel like this would be the book that I'm like, oh, you want to know what 40K is about? Enjoy. Like, this is how the stories go.
Or did you play the first one? Just
yes.
So you can see,
the
like,
first one is also, but like, this might be the most 40K of books because you really get to see how the universe operates. You get to see how uncaring the Imperium is, right? Mm-hmm. How brutal it is to be a citizen. You get to see why fans of the 40K universe do not want to live in the 40K universe.
Correct.
And there are no real happy endings in the 40K universe.
No. Done.
And it's all kind of futile.
The closest we had kind of was Severina Rain.
Right. And even then,
yeah,
they're going to be off in an active war zone soon.
Or Knights of Macragge. But
even then they end with, we're going to leave you two to be in lovebirds on this planet. Oh, the orcs are going to come back.
And he's not doing well.
He's not doing well, and the orcs are going to come back.
It's a forced retirement.
Okay. Yeah. It a nice oddly human moment from the Ultramarines. But like, oh my goodness. These are our happy romantic endings that we get. I got really excited because there was a romance in this, and then I was like,
and then you just ripped my heart out and just tossed it aside. Well, it's like, even in Bloodlines, like, he catches the bad guys and everything. We're like, oh, this is like, this is actually a happy ending. And then you find out what he's actually doing. And you and I both said the same thing. We're like, why couldn't he have been having an affair?
Well, it's funny because, you and I both had the same moment where the midpoint we were like, oh, so disgusted because he's having an affair. And at the end, why can't you just be having sex with some other woman like a decent human? Better that than a Tyranid cult. She's still a cult.
God, right?
We worship the serpent. What? Ultimate betrayal. Where is our sequel to that? By the way, just asking.
We haven't even gotten a short story.
Not even. We actually were discussing before the podcast. There's going to be a whole column about whatever happened to. Can add that to the top of the list. But I do think that this was, but without being stereotypically 40K, right? Like, it didn't feel like he was trying too hard. oh, you like this person? They're dying too. He does that. He does that, but it feels natural.
It's not George R. R. Martin. Your
Right,
favorite
where
character,
like some of the
eh?
characters you're like, oh, well, that was kind of pointless. You didn't have to kill. You did not have to kill Kevin Lannister. Sick, I'm still mad about that one. Um, you didn't have to kill that guy. Ned had to die. Kevin did not. Fight me.
Oh, okay.
I have a lot of feelings about the Song of Ice and Fire. Just so we're very clear, I have a lot of feelings.
Yeah, no, I no longer have feelings about that book series after the fourth book. So, yeah.
After this show, I'm just kind of like, I don't really care anymore.
And then we have other books where they don't let people die when they should have.
In some ways, this is the opposite of the Gate of Bones.
Mm-hmm.
Which, okay, again, that book frustrates me. That book frustrates me. I got to go on a rant to my friend and his kid, who neither of them are into 40K. His kid is like 22, so I shouldn't make it sound like, I'm ranting at an 8-year-old. No. I got to go on this rant. They don't know anything about 40K, but in Space Marine, you can unlock, I think it's a power sword skin that's from the Cathalamor Crusade. And I'm like, oh, hey! I should never have let those characters live, because that was an excellent book up until that point. It was an absolutely excellent book, and it's the shining part of that absolutely horrible series. Which, oh, don't worry, we're gonna talk more about that. Just kill characters. This guy was like, I feel like he was like looking over at that book, being like, see, look how easy it is. Dead. The people liked this character. As he's rage typing. People were emotionally invested in Gunther. And
he took the idea of killing your darlings literally.
Oh. Like, oh, look at this character that you don't really know how to feel about. I'm going to make you love him by the end of the book. And then I'm going to kill him.
Because.
Cotton. Yeah, because again, it actually, you know what? Unfortunately, looking back at the beginning of the book, there was no other option for Gunther. The second they conscripted him. Dude, what are you going to do? Go be a Kriegsman? No.
I know. And in some way, I know if they got back together and he ran off the planet with her, I would have been disappointed in a way. Basically, what I'm saying is I cannot be made happy.
No. Do you know what would have made me happy? No. This is what made me happy. If the Necrons would have either been like, you know what, this planet isn't worth it, we're out, bye. Or if they would have defeated the Necrons, and then he comes back, this badass officer, takes over the PDF, she becomes the governess of the planet, and they live happily ever after, ruling over their utopia, okay?
I don't know if that would have been good.
Shut the fuck up. I have a fan fiction written about this. No, that actually would have been terrible. It would have been terrible, and I would have been like...
It would have been, been very trite. And
having said that, would it have made you not cry?
But then I would have cried for a different reason.
I guess what I'm saying is that neither of us can be made happy.
No, maybe
this is my headcanon. My headcanon is they defeat the Necrons and they live happily ever after. Him, badass leader of the PDF. She, a better governess than her uncle was. Tyler dies. Promise Tyler did nothing wrong. And I just didn't like him because I preferred Gunther. This is definitely a Team Jacob versus Team Edward moment for me.
Oh, God. I was thinking of Hunger Games as well between, Gale and I don't remember the other guy's name. But
I don't either. It was something dumb, though.
Well, yes, because she couldn't name characters for shit, but...
Yeah, exactly that. Oh, my God. Yeah, I can't be made happy. This is what I'm saying. But here's the thing. This book, I'm going to carry the nugget of loving this book in my heart and the feelings that I had and the happiness and the joy that this book brought to me in a really weird 40K kind of way. Because our next book... Okay,
Yeah. Come on.
No.
Aren't you?
No.
She excited? So excited?
We're going to read The Hand of Abaddon. I knew that we had to read it eventually because I bought the limited edition of it, and we had to read it eventually. Oh my God.
I just figured might as well get it over with. Rip this Band-Aid off. We know it's going to be bad. Maybe it'll be good.
Maybe I'm a Chinese jet pilot.
I don't know. You lived in China for a while. Maybe you are.
Okay, we're going to be reading Dawn of Fire, Hand of Abaddon. It's going to tell the exciting story of the continuation of the Dawn of Fire series, which I know that everyone is very deeply emotionally invested in. Will they be going after the Ring of Bucharest? Will they be going after something else? Will the Inquisitor MacGuffin show up? Don't answer that question because we already know the answer is yes. What's going to happen?
Oh my God. What if the Ring of Bucharest is one of the shards of Erebus?
Shut up.
All right. I'm done.
I will. No, Adam, that is a limited edition.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh my God.
It's carpet up here.
I want everyone to know that I hate the Thousand Suns, but in Space Marine 2, every time you like do an execution on a rubric marine and their like warp essence comes flying out, my first thought is always, those are irreplaceable. As opposed to all the humans I'm splattering. It's like if somebody were to break a vase. I'm like, oh my God. Even though I don't even care I'm not even emotionally invested in the Thousand Suns. Anyways, we're going to be reading this book. I had hoped to save it for the end of the year or maybe start the next year with it. But no, Carrie's like, let's just rip this Band-Aid off. And yeah, okay, sure. At least you know what? Hey, the spoonful of sugar will make the medicine go down.
Oh, there we go.
Now that I have brought Mary Poppins into a Warhammer 40k conversation, do you want to take us out?
I think it's time. Yes.
I think it's time.
Oh my goodness. So you've listened to the Warhammer 40k book club episode regarding Dead Men Walking by Steve Lyons. Be sure to join us next time for The Hand of Abaddon that I tossed behind me by Nick Kime. Probably scared everybody who's downstairs. We are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. Okay, yes. Sorry, we started with limited editions. We're just going to have to finish that way. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, WH40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those good things to the vidcast on YouTube or the podcast, literally anywhere you get podcasts. And come join our Discord. We have fun discussions, like a lot. People have gotten chatty. It's actually kind of a lot of fun. And sometimes people share what they're painting. There's, we got a new guy in there who's showing off his amazing Imperial fists. So cool. I wish I was one of them, but I'm not. I'm just there for the witty banter and the virtual cookies. Our site also has articles about our adventures in reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside of the book club books. I finished the Horus Heresy, people. Finished all 54 books. Done. Now there's a big hole in my heart. I don't know what I'm doing next, but yes,
Don't worry. You have the entire Siege of Terra to go through.
Yes, I do.
It has such great things as Karen. And a 3-part End in the Death.
But there was so much. She just couldn't fit it all in one book. Anyway, so please stay a while and read from a crack. Yeah. You okay?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you mad I threw my book? Or are you just mad that we're going to read that book?
Okay, low-key both. Both. Like, she regularly mocks me because I dog-ear pages. Not on the limited editions. My husband would divorce me. I dog-ear pages on paperbacks.
It's
she
fine.
Just like, she's like, yeeted it. Yeah, we're going to bring back that word to describe what she just did with that book. Just yeet right
the
over
way
the
that I
shoulder.
tossed it, I knew what it was going to do. It landed back behind. It did not land open. If it landed open, I would have felt really, really bad, but it did not. It's fine.
For those of you playing at home, dog-ear page bad, toss over shoulder good. I want to make sure we're level setting.
The book is fine. The dog-eared page is not. It's permanently creased. And
Yeah, but you
ruined.
didn't know that.
Oh, I did.
I knew what it was going to do. No, you did not.
I did too. Do you think I've never thrown a book that heavy before? Come on.
Oh my God.
This is not my first rodeo.
Now we're back to the dog-eared pages. Y'all.
I regret nothing.
I cannot work in these conditions.
Well, you're going to have to. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.